Let me ask you something. Have you ever been completely, totally, 100% sure about a memory, and then found out you were wrong? Maybe you remembered a conversation going one way, someone else remembered it differently, and you thought, there's no way. I was there. I remember it clearly. Or maybe you've caught yourself thinking, I just have a bad feeling about this person, without being able to explain why, and then spend the next 3 weeks finding reasons to prove yourself right. Here's what nobody tells you. Your brain isn't a camera. It's not recording reality and playing it back accurately. It's doing something far more interesting and far more deceptive than that. Your brain is constantly editing, filling in gaps, and rewriting your experience. Not to confuse you, not because something is wrong with you, but because that's exactly how it was built to work. And once you understand how it lies to you, you start seeing everything differently. Let's start with memory, because this is where most people's minds get blown. You probably think of memory like a video file. Something happens, your brain saves it, and when you remember it, you're just pressing play. That is not how it works. Every single time you recall a memory, your brain is reconstructing it, piece by piece, from fragments, filling in the parts it doesn't have with things that feel like they fit. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus spent decades proving this. In one of her most famous experiments, she showed participants footage of a car accident and then asked them a simple question, but changed one word. Half the group was asked, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? The other half was asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? One word, hit versus smashed. The smashed group remembered the cars going significantly faster, and a week later, they were more likely to report seeing broken glass in the footage. There was no broken glass. The word planted in the question rewrote the memory. This isn't a flaw in those participants. This is how human memory works. In all of us, all the time. It's called the misinformation effect, and it means the memories you feel most certain about are sometimes the ones that have been quietly rewritten the most. Now here's where it gets even more personal. Your brain doesn't just lie about what happened in the past, it lies about what's happening right now, using your emotions. There's a thinking pattern called emotional reasoning, and most people do it without ever realizing it. It works like this. I feel it, therefore it must be true. You feel like you embarrassed yourself in that meeting, so you conclude you did. You feel like your friend is annoyed at you, so you conclude they are. You feel like something bad is about to happen, so you treat the threat as real, even when there's no evidence. Your brain takes an emotional signal and converts it into a factual statement, automatically, instantly, without asking your permission. And the reason it does this goes back deep into our evolution. For most of human history, a fast emotional response, that shadow felt dangerous run, kept you alive. There was no time to gather evidence and weigh the pros and cons. Feelings were data, fast data. The problem is, we're no longer running from predators. We're sitting in meetings, navigating relationships, making financial decisions. And that ancient emotional data system is still firing, tagging feelings as facts in situations it was never designed for. So the next time you feel like a failure, or you feel like no one really likes you, or you feel like you're going to say something stupid, know this. Your brain is generating a very convincing story. That doesn't make the story true. So your brain distorts memory, it converts feelings into facts. But here's the mechanism that keeps all of it running without you noticing. Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is your brain's tendency to look for, notice, and remember information that confirms what you already believe, and to quietly ignore everything that contradicts it. Think about the last time you formed a strong opinion about someone, maybe in the first 5 minutes of meeting them, and then, almost without trying, you started noticing every piece of evidence that backed up that impression, and the moments that didn't fit, they just didn't stick. Psychologist Peter Wason demonstrated this back in the 1960s with a deceptively simple test. He gave people a sequence of numbers, 2, 4, 6, and told them there was a rule behind the sequence. Their job was to figure out the rule by suggesting new sequences, and he'd tell them if each one followed the rule or not. Most people immediately assumed the rule was even numbers or add 2 each time, so they tested 8, 10, 12, yes, 14, 16, 18, yes, they confirmed their theory over and over. Almost nobody tried to break their assumption. Almost nobody tested 1, 2, 3, which also follows the rule, because the actual rule was simply any 3 ascending numbers. Your brain, left to itself, builds a theory and then defends it. It doesn't look for the truth, it looks for agreement, and this is running constantly in how you see yourself, in how you see other people, in what news you believe, in whether you think you're capable of something or not. Now, and this is the part I really want you to hear, none of this means your brain is broken. Every single one of these lies is a feature, not a bug. Memory reconstructs because storing every exact detail of every moment would be cognitively impossible. Your brain prioritizes meaning over footage. Emotional reasoning exists because fast decisions based on feeling kept your ancestors alive when there was no time for logic. Confirmation bias exists because your brain is trying to build a stable, coherent model of the world, and constantly reopening every question would be mentally exhausting. Your brain is doing the best it can with limited time, limited energy, and an overwhelming amount of incoming information. The lies aren't malicious, they're efficient. But here's what changes when you know this. You get a gap, a tiny, powerful gap between the automatic story your brain tells and your response to it. You start to ask, is this memory accurate or is it a reconstruction? You start to ask, am I feeling this because it's true or because I'm anxious? You start to ask, am I looking for evidence or am I looking for confirmation? That gap, that 1 second of awareness, is where everything changes. Your brain lies to you every day, not because you're weak or broken or foolish, but because you have a human brain, one that evolved to keep you safe, not to give you a perfectly accurate documentary of reality. The most self-aware people aren't the ones whose brains don't distort things. They're the ones who know their brains distort things and stay curious about it. So this week, try one thing. When you feel completely certain about something, a memory, a judgment, a feeling, just pause for 1 second and ask, is this true or is this just what my brain decided? You don't have to have the answer. Just asking the question puts you ahead of where most people ever get. If you want to keep understanding your own mind, subscribe, because next week we're going somewhere just as interesting. And if this video made you think of someone who needs to hear it, send it to them. That's how this community grows. I'll see you in the next one.